Hey, it's me, Big P, and I wanted to do a quick video to maybe give some tips and tricks to min-maxing the new Atlas. Generally speaking, there's kind of a set of nodes that have been figured out to be good for starting out, but then beyond that, it's kind of free range, no wrong answers. But there are some nodes that are bigger than others, let's say, and a general power progression that might not be as obvious to some newer players, and maybe even some veteran players might make some assumptions about the way this is going to work that will leave them feeling a little bit underwhelmed by the power. So first off, the first thing I want to go over is the fact that, you know, these sorts of areas contain an additional just straight up. These are non-conditional, just flat added juice to your atlas, which are very important to prioritize early, maybe even more so than the dropping maps one tier higher. Although generally speaking, that also those three map wheels here are also a very high priority for you early on. You know, don't try and reinvent the wheel. There's a reason why every content creator will tell you to do this. First off, it's because the core of the Atlas progression, the end game itself, is basically revolves around dropping the next tier of map up until you can get into the red maps tier 14 plus, where the juiciest stuff happens. And on that note, we might see a skill tree and immediately make parallels to the character skill tree that we're normally used to. The Atlas passive skill tree is actually a little bit different, whereas the full character skill tree it has 7 different starts, and they'll each have generally decent nodes, you know, nothing crazy in the beginning, a lot of similar stuff, and then specialize in more weird areas. Whereas there's more of a top to bottom growth in power. Of course, this is generally speaking, you know, because I just said these early ones that give you an additional flat amount on every map, they're very strong. It's kind of insane to think about how every map after the 4th map I run will have an essence in it. But, you know, that's just what they're giving us now. That's just the power of the Atlas. It's changed a bit, and accordingly so, you might have to adjust your skill tree and know yourself as a player and your limits and what your build is going to be capable of doing. Me personally, I'm never really a guy who gets to do synthesis bosses and whatever, but I am interested in farming as much of the currency as I can and learning the searing Exarch fight. I see flat fire damage on spells. That'll be good for my build, so I'm going to focus on that. That's a small thing, but I initially thought you'd probably just want to rush to this, but you know, this doesn't really matter until you have tier 14 maps and are running them and able to kill them, and then also you want to be able to kill the Elder and Shaper Guardians, you know. And you'll kind of have to focus and understand the limits of your build. You know, there's no shame in filling out sort of the lower ones that have just very general strength. And, you know, it's just a sort of thing that you have to figure out for yourself and you can experiment with. Luckily, it seems like the Orbs of Unmaking aren't going to be very scarce. You know, there are going to be plenty around. You might have to, if you want to do a huge full respec, then maybe it'll take a lot. But hopefully the tips I give you here can prevent you from having to do a whole respec out of the tree. I think generally speaking, once you go up into here and then maybe fill out a bunch of these over here, which are just good, it's just flat quantity. You might actually want to go up through the middle here for quant and rarity, but I am going up to this way. You'll kind of have to figure out for yourself exactly what works. So let's use my example to show maybe some choices you'll have to make if you do specialization. Because I don't know if you see at the top, I'm actually really not expecting to get this wheel and maybe even not fill out this wheel as much as I'm hoping for, because this would assume that you have every single Atlas passive point. That's full map completion in addition to all of the boss fights that are pretty tricky that will give you the additional points. I think it's like the invitations and like the end game bosses like Uber Elder and shit like that, that, you know, you shouldn't just assume you'll have. You know, depending on your build, it might take a build or two to get there. You know, you might not get there at all, and that's fine. You can still get leverage a lot of power from the Atlas skill tree here. So let's go over what I chose for Breach and the decisions I have to make. So, oh no, that's not that. That's Breach. So right off the bat, first off, the online, I'm going to link my skill tree here just so you have a reference and just a link to the Atlas passive skill tree. So let's go over the Breach nodes and why I'm kind of lamenting not being able to take Probing for Weakness because it's just a little bit more out of the way. Initially I thought like maybe I would start going up through the Sulfite because I wanted to go into Sulfite too, and I ended up having to cut that as well. We'll go over that in a little bit as well. But generally speaking, I would take a look at the small nodes for all of these wheels that you're filling out. So this first one here, the Gatekeepers section, is pretty good because it gives +1 chance to breach, +1 chance here. I'm boosting both Ulnatol and Shayula at the same time. I think that'll, it is weighted. It's 30 for Shayula, 60 for Ulnatol, and 100, 100, and 100 for the other three. You don't need to boost those because those will be probably showing up more commonly. But the fact that it gives you flat 1% chance to contain breaches is very important, especially because we don't have breach on the map device. So if you don't want to buy a bunch of breach scarabs, I'm probably not going to be buying a bunch of breach scarabs to make the breach consistent. Maybe it will end up being worth it once I do have everything specced out in my breach tree. But as you can see from these other wheels, these are just breach boss chance, not flat chance to get a breach in your map. So I think also here, this is a better wheel because we have we got 3% here. This is a monster chance, and then flash breach, which, I'm so thankful that they have not taken away my flash breach because otherwise I would not bother with breaches at all. So, what's really rough is that we don't get to go for Probing for Weakness, which is a flat 4%, which is more than we get in any of the other wheels. So you're really going to have to understand the idea that not all nodes are created equal, and by the same token, all of these mechanics, some of them will have easier access to. Like, for example, if you wanted to farm Incursion, you can use these nodes and then also just run the missions off your map device. Same with Delve. Delve is also found on the map device. So you don't have to focus as much for those. But for Breach, I mean, we'll see. I might honestly have to go down and get this. I don't even know how I'd do it. I'd maybe come down from here. Maybe I'd drop the strong box and these weird map boss ones that I'm taking early just for this one gives map boss drops currency and map drops increased chance for a faded unique item. Like my head's in the way, sorry. That's a pretty interesting one to me, I think. Especially because like this League Prophecy is gone just completely, so there'll be a little bit less bloat, and we don't exactly know the weighting of the new uniques, well, the old uniques that are now the base uniques, or however it works. But beyond that, let me go over one little section that I was able to fill out for Delve that I think has a lot of bang for their buck, in the same way that, you really want to focus, if you are focusing on, let's say, Breach like I am, you do want to boost the base chance for areas to contain the League mechanic. Something like Sulfite Infusion is just a lot of bang for your buck. It's not much Sulfite, honestly, even at the red map tier. 500 is like a third of a node worth of travel, but that's fine because you can just get this on every single map you'll ever run in the League. So even if you run like a dozen maps a day and they're all white maps, that's what, like 2500 Sulfite. That's a node or two of top tier experience, at least early on. I think maybe later, I end up with a bunch of Delve missions just rotting in my Atlas, and then I can spec out of that. I think that's a really powerful part of the skill tree, is the fact that it is going to be flexible. I think a lot of people were afraid that maybe like they would like lock their character out. And even if you don't do these like map ones, these map wheels, I really would advise against doing it, because every single content creator is going to tell you this is how the end game progression works. You need to drop the next tier map higher. Don't sleep on this sort of shit, especially this crazy stuff like rare monsters are duplicated. Pretty insane to get early. But that being said, there's other stuff like pathological. Like, I'm not going to spec into Delirium, but if I spec into pathological, let's say that's 4 I need more than 4, but we'll find some more somewhere. Pathological is cool because it's just maps found in areas have a chance to have delirium on them, and these are kind of a waste. But like, when you do run those delirious maps, dropping the cluster jewels, I guess they'll be okay. But another one where you don't necessarily need to spec your tree fully into a thing to boost the actual feeling of it. You'll just get these sometimes, and they'll be like a little cherry on top of your general mapping experience. And just generally speaking, I think it's going to be a very fun league to kind of experiment with mechanics that maybe weren't as, or just a little bit more stringent, because it'd be like a little thing like, oh, I will like this mechanic, but it's in this area that only has these maps, and I'm not a fan of any of them. That's completely gone. I think it's really interesting to see how the favored map system is going to work. We're really going to be able to specialize our atlas, and I'm very excited to see what strategies people come up with. And I mean, I'm just killing time until Friday, like it's very, it's an exciting time to be playing because we've never had anything like this. This is an unprecedented amount of power. There are some people lamenting the specialization and strength of some of these nodes, but I think they're really underestimating the fact that this is just on the Atlas, and it's a very evergreen and complete rework of the end game. Generally speaking, that's going to feel fantastic in the 3.17 Siege of the Atlas League. So let me know if you have any questions about maybe what you should prioritize depending on what you want to farm. And if you think I missed any of these like sort of bang for your buck nodes, like Sulfite Infusion and Pathological, I like to keep an eye out for things like that because, not everybody is going to get a full skill tree. Not everybody is going to even get to like the top area, and it's totally fine because there's still plenty of power to be found here. And let me know what sort of builds you want to run, what you want to see on the channel. Be sure to like and sub, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.